Florida Governor Tim Walz speaking out one day after dropping his bid for re-election following that massive fraud in his state that sent his political career spiraling.
Yep, just moments ago, Walz was seen as a rising star in the Democrat Party. He was chosen to be Kamala Harris' running mate in the 2024 presidential election. The campaign viewed him as a folksy two-term Midwestern governor who could appeal to the average voter. And following Harris's loss, some of Walz saw him as an early contender for 2028 and a leading voice in taking on President Trump.
But while Walz was building a national profile, massive fraud was taking place in his state. And of course, that has since been uncovered, marking the beginning of the end for his political career.
NEWSMAX, we have an exclusive look into the scandal dashing the governor's political future and ambitions. Our correspondent Joe Moeller has that report. You're not going to get anywhere else, Joe. Okay, so you got some details on the violations of the Minnesota daycare centers and some of the other red flags. What exactly did you find?
Well, Nick Shirley's video talks a lot about the money aspect of all this and the kids that were missing at those daycares, right? But State Representative Kristen Robbins says there's so much more to this than just that. Between, like you had mentioned, these red flags that are coming out, like the signs that are outside of these places, and also you look at some of these violations. And so we decided to head to one location that has several daycares to look at some of these red flags.
And to see if we can see it on the building.
In a viral video, Nick Shirley and David Hoke visited childcare centers where they claim children weren't present.
$4 million in the last 2 years.
The state later inspected those locations and reportedly said that 9 of them were operating as expected. After 7 years of research, Hoke says he still stands behind the fraud claims.
I'm hoping that one of them will sue me, because then I can have the discovery and I'll blow this whole thing up.
From signs with errors to empty parking lots, Hoke and others say red flags have gone ignored at care centers receiving millions of dollars in government funding.
All right, well, didn't see a sign for that one.
Well, Saturday, I visited a building on Lake Avenue getting a lot of attention online. What stood out at first, multiple care centers operating in a single building. Something I found in the area are buildings with many of the same type of businesses.
No ice.
One center had no sign out front, but had multiple entrances, it appears.
This is the one there's been past reports on.
A local report shows it previously received government funding despite an alarming list of violations. Another red flag pointed out by Hoke, the constant violations at centers. From safety issues to improper documentation, over the last 5 years, every care center in this building, including the adult daycare, racked up violations.
There's one daycare, Creative Minds Daycare, 3801 Portland Avenue in Minneapolis. It had so many violations that the state shut it down. That place literally reopened the next day under the name Super Kids Daycare.
Intisar on that sign. So that's the 4th daycare in this building.
One records show one daycare, Intisar, lost its license in 2021 due to violations. 5 years later, that sign is still here next to Uptown Urgent Care, another business I couldn't find.
We didn't see a sign for anywhere outside as well. So we're trying
When
to
looking
see
at these companies, you'll also notice a web of connections. For example, I looked into the people associated with the businesses in this building. One of the CEOs and his wife are connected to a handful of companies in Minneapolis and even one home healthcare company out of state.
So these webs are what are the red flag.
The overlap is alarming, according to state representative and gubernatorial candidate Kristen Robbins.
The red flag that is, been so glaringly ignored by the Walz administration.
And Robbins there is, she's one of the state lawmakers who will actually be testifying at our nation's capital. First of 2 congressional hearings on the fraud here in Minnesota that's taking place tomorrow. She says the public and all of us will be learning a lot about what's happening here in Minnesota.
All right, Joe, thank you so much. A great exclusive and amazing. There are all those red flags, as you pointed out, that the Walz administration just seemed to conveniently ignore. Want to get your thoughts, though. Obviously, you spoke to a lot of Minnesotans there on the ground. What is their reaction to this, and what do they think should happen to Governor Tim Walz? Obviously, it's been the end of his political career, at least as it seems as it is now, but do they think there should be further consequences for him?
Yeah, when you talk to people here in Minnesota, it's sort of like a secret that's not really a secret as the fraud going on and alleged fraud at these businesses and these type of businesses. You just drive around town, you see the number of healthcare, childcare, daycares, different centers that are all sort of connected or right next door to each other. So people know this issue's been out there and the government has known about it. And many are still calling for Governor Tim Walz to resign instead of just simply not seeking a 3rd term. I know Hoke there, who was a big part of this investigation, looking into it for 7 years, says he wants Walz out of office.
Information. Truth is freedom. Is NEWSMAX. It's real news for real people.